Hi guys, welcome back to In Case of Econ Struggles. Today I'm going to continue my series on making macro models easier. Today I'm talking about the ISLM model, and we're going to drive the IS curve using that two-period model that we developed in a previous video. So what's our goal here? I've talked about the ISLM model in a bunch of different videos. I'm happy to link to specific videos if you have specific questions. I can respond to comments or put some video links in the description. But the basic ISLM model, we've got this IS curve, this LM curve, and this full employment line. Today we're talking about how we can get this IS curve from a two-period model. What we know about the IS curve is it relates output to the real interest rate R. We know that if consumption goes up, this shifts to the right. We also know that investment saving going up or government spending going up also shifts this curve to the right. When we're thinking about this is a downward sloping line, which just means that the real interest rate going up means that Y goes down. R going down means that Y goes up. Let's sort of dive in and start deriving this from our two-period model. Just as a quick review of that two-period model, I'll link the video to this in the description below, but we've got Bill. He's living for 2 periods. He's got coconuts that show up on his door every day. I'm going to sort of do a change of variable. Instead of calling them E like I did in that video, I'm going to call them Y just because it relates better to the ISLM model. And again, Bill is choosing how much to eat today, tomorrow, and how much to save or borrow today for tomorrow. I gave you an example utility function where he weights consumption in both periods equally. He's borrowing and lending coconuts from today into tomorrow at interest rate R%. There's no prices here. We're talking about coconuts. And the government has some taxes. They're going to take taxes today and taxes tomorrow. We showed in that last video using the utility maximization problem that the amount of coconuts that Bill wants to consume today is 1/2 times the present value of his lifetime income net of taxes. So if we want to make this a macro model instead of a micro model, we're just going to say, well, we used to have one bill and now we're going to have millions and millions of bills, but everyone is just like Bill. So consumption today in terms of everyone is just going to be the sum of everyone's individual consumption, which means that the demand for consumption is just 1/2 times the present value of lifetime income. Now this 1/2 here has a special meaning. This is what we call the marginal propensity to consume, because this means that for every dollar that lifetime income goes up or down, Bill's consumption or his desired consumption today is going to go up or down by 1/2 of that amount. And so this is based on the utility function. So if I change the utility function, I'm going to change the marginal propensity to consume, which will come up later when we talk about multipliers and things like that. And actually now we have most of what we need to sort of derive this IS curve. We know from measuring economic activity that Y is C plus I plus G plus NX. We've just derived what C is. We can talk about what G and I are later, but actually we don't necessarily need those to derive the IS curve, because if we look at this function or this equation for desired consumption today, what we have is we have consumption as a function of income, taxes, which is basically government spending, and the real interest rate. And we can see that if the real interest rate goes up, then consumption demanded goes down because it's in the denominator. If income or endowment goes up today, then we're going to increase consumption. And so we basically can just go straight to the IS curve. In order to do that more formally, we're going to use that with what I call a tale of two graphs. On the left-hand side, this is going to be basically expenditure or planned expenditure. This is actual expenditure. And so what we're doing is we just have a 45-degree line where actual expenditure equals planned. And now suppose what we've got is this guy right here is at the current interest rate. This is Bill's consumption demand, again, multiplied by however many people we have living in this economy. And so over here on the second graph, I plotted Y against R. And so here's that pink point here. Here's that exact point. Now what happens if I increase the interest rate? Well, if I increase the interest rate, I know that my consumption is going to shift down, because again, here I'm plotting Y against expenditure planned. So if I shift the interest rate, I need to shift this curve, because this is just a 45-degree line, it never shifts. So if I make the interest rate higher, consumption shifts down. And so maybe now I intersect right here at purple dot, which means a higher interest rate, a lower Y, because my Y have shifted left. So maybe I have this point now in purple. I can shift the interest rate even higher and move consumption further down. Now I get to this green point. If I shift the interest rate lower relative to where I started, well, now consumption demand today is going to go up, which means I'm going to shift this guy up, which means now my new intersection point is at a level of output that's to the right of where I started. And so now if I did that for every possible real interest rate, I would trace out some line that looks like this, which is exactly what an IS curve is. And so now I've derived the IS curve. So you might say, oh, okay, well, you did that for consumption, but like you sort of hand waved about investment in government. I'm going to show you that actually you can hand wave because investment in government is sort of just going to back you up. It's not going to detract from the story we just told. So if I'm thinking about investment, Suppose instead of being a household, Bill also owns a firm. He hires capital and labor to produce those coconuts. Instead of those coconuts arriving for free, he pays his capital some rental rate and he pays his workers some wages. His machines break every day. The rate at which they break is depreciation delta. And what he can do is he can invest some of those coconuts. Instead of saving, he can invest them to buy more machines tomorrow. So if we're thinking about coconuts, maybe he plants some coconuts and they turn into coconut trees tomorrow. Those coconut trees help him produce coconuts. So the amount of machines that Bill's going to have tomorrow is the amount of machines that are today minus the ones that break plus the amount of machines that he purchases for tomorrow. So if this is his profit, this is Y, then what is Bill's optimal amount of investment? Well, his optimal investment is where the marginal benefit of investing is equal to the marginal cost. His marginal benefit of buying an extra machine is that he produces a little more coconuts. How many more coconuts? The marginal product of capital tomorrow, because he's investing today to install a new machine tomorrow. What is the cost of installing that extra machine? Well, he's got to borrow some money today, plus he's going to have to replace that machine when it breaks. So this is basically his user cost of capital, where R is the cost of the machine use and delta is the cost to replace, which means that if this guy goes up, if the rental rate goes up, then Bill wants to invest less because it's more costly to use capital, which means that the relation between R and I is downward sloping, which means if we add that into consumption, we're not going to change the fact that as we increase the interest rate, now C and I are both shifting down. And so we've just sort of reinforced the idea that in the IS curve, R and Y are inversely related. For government, we're just going to suppose that they're going to choose government spending today and tomorrow. They're going to finance that by taxes, and they're going to borrow. So they're sort of neutral in this argument, which is why I didn't really talk about them. But now I've sort of completed the argument about how we get the IS curve. And as usual, if something wasn't clear, feel free to throw that in a comment below and I'll try to address it, or maybe make sort of a follow-on video if something wasn't explained very well. The one thing I want to talk about just before we're done is multipliers. Multipliers come up a lot on tests and exams and those sorts of things, so they're important to know. What we need to do in order for this multiplier is we need this yt function. We need this to be a function of things that are not yt. So see, we got a yt in here, and so we need to sort of get that out of there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to expand this guy, multiply everything by the marginal propensity to consume, and then I'm just going to sort of isolate it. I have this 1 minus MPC times YT guy, so now I'm going to pull that over and divide by everything, and now what I'm going to get is I'm going to get that Y is this MPC over 1 minus MPC. This is the consumption multiplier. This is how responsive Y is to consumption. And this stuff, this is all exogenous to period T consumers. And so now we know that Y is a function of everything that's sort of exogenous. And so this is how Y responds to an extra dollar of consumption. So again, this is how we derive the IS curve. Of course, I'm going to derive the LM curve and the full employment line. We can talk about shocks using this new sort of micro-based ISLM model. If there are things you want to see or questions you have, again, feel free to put that in the comment section below. If this video or these videos in general helping you out, please like and subscribe. See you next time for another case of econ struggles.